Hello, my name is Richie Cunningham and I'm going to talk about climate literacy today. I'd like to thank the Global Forum for Teacher Educators for inviting me to talk to you today about this important subject. Firstly, I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction of myself and then on to the importance of climate literacy, how climate literacy can be integrated into the curriculum, and in particular climate literacy in secondary education, where my expertise tends to lie, and then a brief conclusion. If I can introduce myself, first of all, I'm essentially a geography teacher. I started teaching geography, economics and geology in 1977. Now in Scotland we have to study a subject for 2 years or more before you can even begin the teacher training to become a teacher. So that's 2 years plus in university for each subject. In an American system, I suppose that's about 6 semesters plus before you can effectively train to be a teacher. So in Scotland, it's quite restricted into the subjects that you can teach by your university degree. While I was a teacher, I also served for 10 years as a principal examiner for geography for the Scottish Exam Board. And that's a sort of an honorary title. It's a job I had to do in my spare time as well as doing my normal job, and really it meant leading a small team to produce exams, produce the marking instructions, and then each year I would take a meeting with around about 300 or so exam markers and explain to them how they should mark the exam. Thereafter I would set grade boundaries for passes and fails and all the rest of it. It's quite an interesting job. I became head teacher of a secondary school and that was in 1991, and I did that job for 23 years. That was at Inverness High School. And I also previously I'd been a teacher educator prior to becoming a head teacher. So I've written quite a number of teaching resources in my time, including quite a number of textbooks. My involvement in promoting climate change really started in 1989-1990 when I was on a small committee that was tasked with rewriting the senior school curriculum in geography. And one of the things we did is we split the curriculum for geography into two, human and physical geography. And in physical geography it was split into 4 subsections: hydrosphere, biosphere, lithosphere and atmosphere. And I pressed while on that committee to ensure that in the atmosphere section we added 2 words, and those 2 words were climate change. So in 1990 the curriculum was released for schools and climate change was mentioned for the very first time, certainly in a Scottish curriculum. But it's not just a couple of words in a curriculum that changes what is taught. There are other ways too. I then worked on producing exam questions on climate change, and that had an influence again on what parts of climate change were taught and how much emphasis was given to it. And then along with a colleague I wrote a series of textbooks for the new curriculum, and in those textbooks I wrote a significant chapter on the atmosphere, and within that there were 18 pages on climate change, and the illustration on this slide shows the first 6 pages of that climate change section. Now the curriculum has been modified bit by bit over the last 30 years, but surprisingly it looks very familiar to the curriculum we wrote in 1990. One of the impacts with climate change becoming more prominent has been that instead of doing it within the atmosphere section, it's been taken out and given a section on its own. But largely, if I look back at the chapter I wrote on climate change, it's essentially the same sort of concepts that are covered in the new curriculum as I wrote in that textbook way back in 1991. Obviously, the data has changed quite a bit since then. I retired as a head teacher around about 9 years ago. I then was cajoled back out of retirement to work in teacher education for 3 more years. And in retirement, I've also returned to writing books, and one of them was on the atmosphere and climate change, which I've updated recently. Last year I updated it to include some new information and new data. I also have a website where I offer a range of free resources, and I split it up into early, middle and senior secondary geography courses. And you go into those sections and you can download the bits that you're interested in, and it's all free to use. And I also put in a number of photographs and slides, which again are there in a separate section, and they're all again free for teachers and students to use how they wish. And really, my website really, is there the intention to try and help teachers by providing a range of resources. I also curate some social media. On Facebook, I run a number of Facebook groups, including one on climate change and several on different aspects of the geography curriculum. Now, on to the main topic for discussion, and that's climate literacy. We live in an era of unprecedented environmental challenges. Climate literacy has emerged as an essential tool for understanding, navigating and addressing the complexities of climate change. Given the urgent challenges of climate change and the need for informed decision making, how can integrating climate literacy into education have a tangible impact on students and society? And I'd like us to explore the importance of climate literacy and how it can be effectively integrated into educational curricula to empower individuals to address the climate change issue that faces us all. Climate literacy encompasses a comprehensive understanding of the Earth's climate system, the factors contributing to climate change, the strategies for mitigation and adaptation. It also involves not only the acquisition of knowledge, but also the development of critical thinking skills and a sense of environmental stewardship. The significance of climate literacy lies in the potential to foster a generation of individuals who are capable of addressing and mitigating the impacts of climate change. And just go on to the next slide. And the importance of climate literacy. First of all, it's to understand the scientific basis of climate change. Climate literacy helps us as individuals to grasp the fundamental principles of climate change, including the greenhouse effect, the role of human activities on that, and the impact of rising temperatures. We also have to appreciate the complex, interconnected nature of climate change. Climate change is a global phenomenon with far-reaching consequences for ecosystems, economies, and human well-being. Climate literacy enables individuals to grasp the interconnectedness of these systems and the potential consequences of climate change. We also have to identify the human and environmental impacts of climate change. Climate change is already having a significant impact on the planet, and these impacts are expected to intensify in the coming years. Climate literacy helps us to, as individuals, to understand the potential impacts of climate change on our own lives, on our communities, and the environment around us. We also have to look to evaluate potential solutions to climate change. There are a variety of potential solutions postulated for climate change, but these solutions must be based on their effectiveness, their feasibility, and potential impacts. And climate literacy helps individuals understand the pros and cons of different solutions and make informed decisions about which solutions to support. We have to make informed decisions about personal and collective behaviour. Climate change is a complex issue with no easy solutions. However, individuals can make a difference by making informed decisions about their own behaviour and advocating for policies that address climate change. Climate literacy equips individuals with the knowledge and understanding they need to make these informed decisions. The core aspects of climate literacy, as I see it, well, first of all, as global temperatures continue to rise, extreme weather events become more frequent and climate change impacts intensify. Being climate literate is more important than ever. Climate literacy refers to the understanding the essential principles of the Earth's climatic system and being able to make informed decisions regarding climate change based on scientific information. Developing climate literacy on a societal scale is crucial for building resilience and adapting to our changing world. There are several core aspects of this climate literacy. First of all, understanding the basic science of how the climate system works. For example, the greenhouse effect, the carbon cycle, how greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide trap heat, and this includes how human activities like burning fossil fuels have increased greenhouse gases, amplifying the natural greenhouse effect and causing global warming. We also have to be aware of the signs of climate change, which are all around us, such as the increasing global temperatures, rising sea levels, melting ice sheets and glaciers, intensifying extreme weather, and shifts in plant and animal ranges. Knowing how climate change is already impacting on the natural and human systems around the world. Another aspect is understanding the potential risks and consequences of climate change, from more frequent droughts and heat waves that threaten food and water supplies to rising seas and coastal erosion that puts communities at risk, to impact on health, the economy, national security. Climate change is a threat multiplier that exacerbates existing vulnerabilities. Another aspect of climate literacy is knowing that there are different solutions and actions that can be taken to mitigate and adapt to climate change, ranging from transitioning to renewable energy, improving energy efficiency, preventing deforestation, building climate resilient infrastructure, developing crops that are heat or drought resistant, and much, much more. Understanding that climate solutions require action at individual, community, corporate and government level. And finally, being able to evaluate and synthesize climate science information. With so much data and news circulating, it's critical that we check our sources, we avoid misinformation, we make evidence-based conclusions about climate science and climate action. Developing climate literacy takes time, but it's worthwhile, a worthwhile investment for people of all ages and backgrounds. From implementing climate education in schools to raising awareness through media campaigns and public events, climate literacy empowers communities to take action. Now, how can climate literacy be integrated into the curriculum? Well, it can be applied at all levels of education, from early childhood right through to higher education. In early childhood education, climate literacy can be introduced through activities that teach children about the weather, the natural world, and the importance of taking care of the planet. In secondary education, climate literacy can be integrated into science and social studies, language and art classes. Students can learn about the science of climate change, the impacts of climate change, and potential solutions. And they can also examine their feelings and the impact that climate change is going to have on human society. In higher education, climate literacy can focus on courses in science and engineering and in policy. Students can delve into the latest research, explore complex challenges and opportunities associated with addressing this important global issue. As I said, my area of expertise is in secondary education, and my view is quite clearly that climate change teaching should be interdisciplinary. Now, obviously my own subject, geography, has a key role in that, but there are many other subjects that can have an impact and help young people to understand the complex nature of the problem. A good place for teachers to start is to check out resources that are available from the Centre for Sustainable and Climate Resilient Schools. And on the next page, there's the next page shows a start to their home page on their website. And there are a whole range of resources which are very, very useful for teachers from a wide variety of levels. So it's a good place to start, and I've included a link to this at the end of my presentation. It's important that teachers in secondary education take account of emotions and feelings of young people. A lot of young people can get very anxious about climate change. There's a lot of doom and gloom in the press, and it's very easy for young people to get swamped and fearful. And we have to be aware that we have to balance that with there are ways that we can mitigate climate change and we can address their concerns and their fears. In some schools, climate literacy is too often left either to the geography or the science classroom, but there are many other subjects which can have a role in understanding climate change, and they have a contribution to make to climate literacy. English language in Scottish schools, teachers have a huge flexibility in regard to the content they can put in front of young people. The text they use, whether they be of a science fiction nature or whether it's articles from the press, poetry, a whole range of material can be used, and young people can examine this and develop an understanding through literature. And at the same time, the young people are developing their language skills as well. And this is a grid which outlines the way that climate change and climate generation can be tackled through storytelling in English. And storytelling is obviously a big part of the English language course. Social studies obviously has an area where social issues can be examined, and the social studies curriculum already positioned to teach about complex issues, and it's a good area where geography and economics, politics and culture can be integrated and can engage young people in discussion. Now, my own subject, geography, is obviously unique. It straddles social studies and science, and it's ideal for discussing human and environmental interactions. And this resource here, the Earth Forces resource, shows how in the teaching of civics or social studies, environmental action can be included in the curriculum. And again, I've left a link on that at the end of the talk. Mathematics. It's important to make valid interpretations about climate change. Data. I mean, the understanding of data is absolutely critical. It's very, very confusing, the amount of data that can be thrown at people in the media, and often misinterpreted or misrepresented. Quite a simple entry point for young people is to understand how a carbon footprint is calculated, so they can understand the impact that an individual or a family can have on the climate change debate. And also, through learning that, they can also understand what can be done to mitigate the negative impacts. The next slide shows a carbon footprint calculator, and it's quite a good learning resource for young people. And mathematics has an area here that it can actually use real information and promote discussion, which often doesn't take place in a mathematics classroom. And there are other mathematics resources which are worth looking at. The Mathematics Association of America give a useful starting point for mathematics teachers. And this is a very useful resource, and again I've provided a link for you there. Now, climate literacy is an essential skill for individuals of all ages. By understanding the science of climate change and its impacts, we can make informed decisions about how to mitigate and adapt to the effects. Integrating climate literacy into education is an important step towards building a more sustainable future for all. As I said, I believe that an integrated approach in a secondary school where subjects tend to be compartmentalised is very important. And I've seen in some countries that they're very good at integrating topics across the curriculum. And in others, they're not. I mean, in Scotland, I thought we were making progress, but I do feel things have taken a step backwards. And I think in times when there are economic restraints, people tend to retreat within their own silos, and that is a danger. That they tend to then just focus on their own little bit and forget about the other subject areas that can have an impact and importance. I'd like to thank you for listening to this. I've actually got a number of other resources which I put on the next slide, which is the last slide in the presentation. And all of these are quite useful. And if I had time, I would go through some of these so you could have a look at them individually. But the important thing to remember is there are a very, very wide range of resources out there that people can utilize. It isn't a shortage. It is a plethora of information. But key to this is to help young people understand and then make informed decisions. And in that way we have a better informed society and a society that's able to take action. And these are the resources, and obviously this is a recording that I'm making at the moment, and if I'm doing it live I would be able to go into each of these resources which you could have a look at one at a time.